A few years ago, I guess it would be about 8 years ago, my daughter wasn't even 2 years old, so you can imagine what it's like to be a new father and to have a beautiful wife who, for the past 2 years, the sex life is kind of surprising. It gets a little diminished when there's a little one in the house. So I started a new job, and they were kind enough, and this is in Massachusetts, to give us a getaway to a hotel called Cuddles and Bubbles. And it lives up to its name. Okay. Now, Cuddles and Bubbles, the best relationship, if you will, would be just like the Poconos, the Big Caesar, the Champagne Tower, all of that, you know, if you've ever been there. And if you haven't, I highly recommend it. The thing is that, of course, our daughter was under 2. We didn't know anybody in the area. So I called ahead just to see if it's appropriate. And they said, sure, your suite's going to be big enough. That's fine. No problem, you know, because we want to make sure that she had a room and you know, we were going to, you know. Anyway, so we drive to Hyannisport with the Kennedys and obviously Cuddles and Bubbles. And now that I think about it, that's a little ironic now, isn't it? But anyway, I digress. So as we pull into the parking lot, because check-in was at 3 o'clock, as soon as I pulled in, I started seeing one of the most wonderful things that makes every man excited. And it's little, small, pink bags being carried by beautiful ladies and, of course, their partner. In case you don't know this, men love those little pink bags from Victoria's Secrets or somewhere else. We don't know what's in there, but our mind just goes crazy. So I knew that we were in the right place, but then again, I'm not really sure if this is the right thing for all of us to be pulling into our minivan with, because everybody's walking into the lobby and the guys are carrying one brown bag with a bottle in it, a small carry-on of a change of clothes, and she's carrying that wonderful little pink bag just oh so daintily. Every couple that was walking in was doing the same scenario. Now, in our minivan, of course, it was me, my wife, the little one, and a huge cargo van full of various and assorted baby needs. Aside from that, we check in. The place is not your typical hotel, it's more like a motel. You check in at the lobby and then you have to drive around to your room. So as I'm seeing these couples, I really realize and start to get the idea that this truly is more of a couples resort, and maybe somebody at the lobby kind of misled me. No worries, we're going to make the best of it. So we check in, we get back into the van, we drive around to the side of the hotel. And I start unloading. I go and I get my wife and I get my daughter, get them into the room, and as soon as we open the door, I realize this is not what it's all cut out to be, because the room, even though it has 2 rooms, they're still very close together, and literally the wonderful 2-person hot tub, which I was really looking forward to, is right there, and then here's the bed, and then the one little nook is right over here, and there's really no place. And then I just realize as I'm standing in this room, looking at myself, because the whole wall, of course, is mirrors, that this is not going to be the cuddly, bubbly experience that I really thought it was going to be. So, half-hearted, and realized that we had some sightseeing to do, I said, okay, you stay here, I'll go unload the van. So I start to unload, and I made a couple of trips, and I brought in our suitcases, and I brought in the baby needs, and I brought everything. And every time I kept coming up those stairs and around the corner, I started getting just a little more bummer, man. I just can't, I can't believe it. Finally, on my last trip, as I'm grabbing one item here and one item here and loading myself up, and the couples, of course, remember the couples that I mentioned as they're making their ways to their night of bliss with everything in the little packages and the little pink bags. So I grab our last load, close the door to the minivan, and start to walk back into our section of the hotel. And as I walk up the stairs, there's this couple, and they're kind of coming towards me. They obviously had gotten lost to their side of the hotel, and they were just turned around. And so I meet them as I'm coming up the stairs, and they stop, and they freeze, and they look at me with just a look on their face, almost scared, almost as if they'd seen a bear and shouldn't move, kind of. And I'm like, and it was at that moment that I saw myself in their eyes. And I did a self-evaluation real quick, because to me it was no big deal about what I had just unloaded from the van. But what I had in one hand was a suitcase. The other hand I had a potty seat. Around my neck I had a Nikon N60 35mm camera with a big flash and a camcorder. So I had them both, a camcorder and the 35mm camera around my neck. And just because I'm a funny guy, I took the other potty seat, the one that's cushioned, and put it on top of my head and was walking into the building with it. And as I realized, and I looked down and did this little self-evaluation and saw the horror in their face, I said the only thing that I could possibly think of. I looked at them, and they were gorgeous people, ready to have a wonderful night of bliss, and all I could say was, we're getting started at around 10:30 if you want to join us, and turned and left. Thank you.